Hey, thanks for listening to the Fearfully and Wonderfully Me podcast. Ladies, if you're ready to take your leadership to the next level, I'd love to invite you to join me on a monthly call on personal and professional leadership development, specifically for women. You can join from Zoom via your desktop or on the mobile app on your phone. The app is free. There's no cost to join the sessions. And I invite you to just come along and grow with me and the other ladies who are committed to developing themselves personally and professionally, increasing their influence, developing their leadership, and maximizing their results. Hey, you can find out more details and get the registration link at riastory.com/leadership call. See you then. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast episode. Inspiration is an inside job. It's almost something I think it's something that almost all of us can relate to is attending a conference or a seminar and getting all fired up and ready to take action or make a change or feeling motivated. And you decide, right then and there that life is going to change and it's going to be different and you're going to get all excited and come back and change the world. And then you get back to work or back home and that motivation just sort of fades away, right? I bet I'm not the only one who's ever had that experience. And we probably all can relate to getting fired up over an event and then come home and we feel like reality hits in and we're like, nah, that really wasn't practical for me, right? That motivation just slowly drains away in the whirlwind of life. And over time, your ability to see that excitement of the change you could visualize fades away as well. And that's because motivation is external, right? It comes from outside, while inspiration is an inside job. It comes from within us, and motivation is external. It can't, and it will not last. That's that reminds me of a quote Zig Ziglar shared that says, "People often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily." Right? Motivation is an something that's triggered or externally driven. How many people get motivated every January 1st to set big goals for themselves around New Year's resolutions, and then like 2 weeks later those the motivation of the new year has faded. And unless we are internally driven or inspired, it's really difficult to keep that commitment to ourselves. So, we're really focusing here on being inspired from the inside so that you can motivate others and influence others from the outside. So, when I talk about this concept, I think it really is critical to find that inspiration within ourselves that taps into why we are doing something, right? We focus on why we're doing something instead of what we're doing. We'll be inspired to continue it even when it doesn't get fun anymore, right? Even when the excitement wears off. I talked in the last week's podcast episode about upcoming training for a marathon, and I know there are going to be days when it's not going to be fun, and I'm going to have discipline. Well, discipline is much easier if you have inspiration, and inspiration is directly tied to why you're doing something instead of what you're doing. Right? That's the mindset shift. I think, for me, I see this a lot with people who choose to eat healthier, and they don't necessarily enjoy it, right? Because it's just a fact that the things that are bad for us taste good, right? I mean, the salt, oil, and the sugars all taste good. There's no doubt it tastes good. That's why we eat it. But we know it's not always the healthiest thing for us, but it just tastes so yummy. And so I see that internal connection, that inspiration to eat healthier comes when we can tap into why we're doing it, not what we're doing, right? I'm tapping into why I want to eat healthier because I want to have more energy. I want to have better health. I want to be able to live longer and see my kids or my grandkids, right? So if I'm focusing on the why, then it's much easier to eat the salad and the plain baked potato instead of the burger and the fries. And I think that's really key because that inspiration, that internal connection to why I'm doing this is an inside job. Inspiration is what gives us hope. Inspiration gives us the vision of something better. And when you can keep that vision clearly in front of you, you'll find a little more of that discipline that we talked about last week, right? Everyone has days and decisions that aren't so easy. All leaders do, all women do. It's not always going to be easy. And both roles, whether we're influencing someone else or leading ourselves well, both of those roles, both of those relationships are going to be easier if we have inspiration, right? As a leader, you must be inspired because you are the example. Others are looking to you as their role model. Tap into your why to stay inspired. Now, a couple of thoughts that I wanted to share with you on how to help you stay inspired. Number one, learn something new. At the end of the day, I love to just ask, what did I learn today? Right? Sometimes it's not a big thing, sometimes it's just a little thing, but learning something new helps us stay inspired because that drives or creates growth. If we're learning something new, that's creating growth and that helps us stay on track with inspiration. And I've talked before about how easy it is. There is no excuse really when it comes to learning and developing ourselves. There are so many resources out there. Podcasts like this are a great way. If you don't have a lot of other great podcasts that you're listening to, ask some of the people who share some of the same values that you do. Hey, what are you listening to that's helping you grow? Share if you're finding value in a resource, then share that with someone else, right? Be the river that passes on a resource instead of the reservoir that wants to just hold it and keep it all in. Um, Number two, visit inspirational places. I think that there's something unique about travel. Travel broadens your perspective. But why it broadens your perspective is it allows you to see the world at a different place of awareness. I don't think there's anybody in the world who could stand beside the Grand Canyon and not have a different level of awareness relative to how small we actually are as individuals in the world, right? I mean, the Grand Canyon is one of those things that you really cannot communicate the depth of the experience. Like you just have to go there because it's so big, it's so massive, it's so huge, but it's so beautiful, but it really changes that level of awareness. And that, when you have an experience like that, that helps you stay inspired. That's inspiring to visit. It's inspiring to see. It makes you think in a different way. Right? And maybe you're not going to the Grand Canyon this year, but look around in your hometown. Visit some of the places in the historical places, the historically significant areas, maybe just in your county, right? Walking around with a different appreciation for the history. Visit an inspirational landmark. Just, broaden that horizon through experience because you'll find inspiration from raising that level of awareness. Number three, read inspirational books. I just talked about, learning something new, but for me, I love to read an inspiring story of someone who's overcome something, someone who's been through something difficult but didn't let that experience define or determine them. Read a biography of someone who's interesting to you, right? Go to the library. You don't have to spend any money. You can and most libraries these days even have ebooks, right? If you have an e-reader, you don't even have to go to the library. You can just get online and download the ebook for free from your library and sit right there in your home or your office or wherever you are. And you're filling your mind with inspirational wisdom from others, and that will help you stay inspired. Number four, this is kind of just going along with the whole theme of reading inspirational books, but watch inspirational movies. Sure, there are some great fiction movies out there, but I don't know about you, but I love the movie about Secretariat, for example, right? Because that was incredibly inspiring, a true story that gives us all just that inspiration. I've talked before about the influences on our lives, what we're listening to, what we're reading, what we're watching, all of those things are influencing us. Let's be intentional about staying inspired by watching inspirational movies. And then last but not least, just do something, right? A lot of times we kind of feel our inspiration is lagging behind or losing it. Maybe it's just leaking out from some way. And, a lot of times it's we talked about discipline in previous podcasts, but A lot of times when we feel that inspiration is starting to slip, if we will take action, it's much easier to get back into that inspiration. I love the quote by Muhammad Ali, the boxer. He said, "I hated every minute of training, but I told myself, don't quit. Suffer now and live the rest of your life as a champion." Right? In other words, he stayed inspired by remembering why he was working so hard. And a lot of times when we feel that inspiration is slipping, if we will just take action and stay committed to that, that will help us continue to tap into that inspiration, right? It's almost like action is affirmation when it comes to inspiration. And that really helps us, stay inspired when we're carrying through. We can see progress. There's no doubt that all of us, we tend to be impatient with progress. I talked to someone just a week or so ago. I was teaching a class and we were talking about persistence and discipline. And I remember this young lady's comment. She's like, "Well, I just don't have a lot of patience." She's like, I just don't have a lot of patience." And I'm like, well, none of us do really, right? We want instant gratification. But life doesn't work like that. When we're working towards something, we're not always going to see results immediately. In fact, most of the time, we're not going to see results. You've heard that quote, and I forget who says it, that it takes 10 years to become an overnight success. Well, absolutely, that is true. And when a lot of times we look around and we see someone who maybe they wrote a book and they're successful as a speaker, or someone, an athlete. I remember seeing a quote. I think it was Usain Bolt who said, "I trained for 4 years for 10 seconds," right? And he's talking about training for the Olympics and training for 4 years for a 10-second performance in the Olympics. And you think about how much time and effort and energy he put into those 4 years, right? But he didn't see the results. He didn't get to reap the benefit until 4 years, in some cases later, right? That's an incredible amount of inspiration that he has to be able to tap into. And all of us, sure, all of us can get distracted or lose focus or get off track, but a lot of times if we are intentional about just taking action, it's much easier to stay inspired when we're not seeing immediate progress, because we're not always going to see immediate progress. And so it's very easy to get frustrated if we don't remember to stay invested in the power of the process. Right? Because motivation is not going to help you be would help you be successful, but it's not going to get you to success. Motivation is not what creates success. It's a process. It's the system that you have in place, and you work the system. And that's why you need that internal inspiration, that internal connection to, why am I doing this? Because we are, as humans, we are chemically wired to get dopamine. That's kind of the reward hormone, that when we accomplish a goal, when we see progress, our brain gives us a little dopamine. It says, "Oh, job well done," right? It's just how we're wired physically. And so when we work towards something and we don't get that little dopamine reward, that little hormone pat on the back, then it's easy for us to lose interest. And maybe that works really well for some people, but I don't think it works well for most people, because most of the time we are going to have to follow through on that process of progress long beyond the point when we're not always interested in it, right? We're losing a little bit of that dopamine hit, and yet we still have to be committed to taking action. And the inspiration comes in when we connect to, why am I doing this, even when I'm not getting the reward drug, right? I'm tapping into why I'm doing this because I know this is going to create the tomorrow that I want by taking action today. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.